You are tuning in to the Atlanta Realtors Rundown, the official podcast for the Atlanta Realtors. We're here to keep you updated with the latest trends, topics, and keep you in the know of our ever-changing Atlanta market. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, Atlanta Realtor members and community. Welcome back to the Atlanta Realtors Rundown. I am Karen Hatcher, your host for today's show. I am super excited about our guest today. Amanda Rhein is one of the pioneers in affordable housing in Atlanta, but she is the executive director for the Atlanta Land Trust. And really excited to have her on the show today because as I've been working with her on affordable housing initiatives over the year and for the city of Atlanta and the 5 surrounding counties, what I've come to understand is that we just don't know enough about it. And so this was the perfect opportunity to get to hear it directly from her so you can understand what the Atlanta Land Trust is, what a land trust is, because there's even in other municipalities, other trusts, how this may be good for your client, what the model looks like, and where to go to get information, additional education, and find the properties that she has available. Before I jump in, if you have not subscribed to our show yet, please hit the subscribe button on whatever you're listening on, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a 5-star rating. That allows us to reach more members, more people in our community so they can hear about this information. This is important stuff, and we want to make sure you make informed decisions. Thanks so much for listening. Amanda, thank you so much for being here today.
So happy to be here with you, Karen.
I am really excited. There's so much cool stuff you've been doing. I've learned about you over the past year and working with you, and I just got to let everybody know how they can work with you, how they can find your properties. But let's take it back to the beginning.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit about your background and how you became involved in the Atlanta Land Trust?
Sure. So I'll take it all the way back to when I came to Atlanta,
Nice.
which was 2002. I came here to get my master's of city planning at Georgia Tech.
Nice.
I had looked at schools all across the country and thought that Atlanta would be the best place to do that work because it's really a living laboratory for the problems that city planners seek to solve. Affordable housing certainly being one of those, but transportation, public infrastructure, parks, all of that. So Atlanta was really, for me, a place of opportunity, a place where I could have an impact. So I came, went to school, had my first job at Invest Atlanta, where I was for about 10 years, working to attract real estate development to historically disinvested parts of the city, primarily through a program called tax increment financing or tax allocation districts. And loved that job, really had an opportunity to have an impact in those communities and grow my professional network. Then I had a chance to go work at MARTA, where I was hired by the general manager, Keith Parker, to oversee a new initiative called Transit-Oriented Development, where we were working to bring development to underutilized surface parking lots in and around MARTA heavy rail stations. The goal was to bring people closer to MARTA so that they would use it. It would increase ridership, increase revenue, and again, kind of support community development, bring services to those neighborhoods that had been ignored for a long time that would benefit those residents in those communities. And then I got recruited for the job at the Atlanta Land Trust. Wasn't ready to leave MARTA, but really felt like this opportunity at the Atlanta Land Trust was too good to pass up. Working on affordable housing was a common thread that has kind of connected all of the roles that I've had throughout my career. And what I had experienced at Invest Atlanta and at MARTA is, we worked really hard to attract development and investment and jobs to these communities, ideally for the benefit of the people that were there, but there was always this unintended consequence of gentrification and displacement. So the idea of the Atlanta Land Trust, we were really working to preserve and create affordable housing to ensure that people could stay in their community or new people could afford to live there, was really appealing to me.
Man, I hear about your history and your background, and it's just like, you have like all the pieces, right? And when it comes to just, urban planning, right? And what's important, especially in a city like Atlanta. And I love that you talked about what attracted you to the city, right? It's perfect, the economic development of the entire state, but the city and just, like you said, all the pieces that needed to develop and increase for us to handle the growth that we were already experiencing, but it's still yet to come.
Right.
And it's still a challenge, finding people places to live. How are they going to move around the city, right? And so the work that you've done and your work experience is pretty incredible, really comprehensive. So you bring a lot of knowledge and experience to the role, which is really great. I remember when we were going through the transit development around MARTA stations and working on the CDP plan a couple of years ago. And now the city of Atlanta is going through the zoning rewrite plan, and we're asking for community engagement. So I got to take this moment to let you all know that they're starting phase 2 of that. And if you go to the City of Atlanta Planning website, you can participate in these community workshops. I've been to phase 1 already. Phase 2 is coming up. They want your input. We want to make sure everyone understands what's happening around the city, why we need development and density in the right places. And you have an opportunity to be involved, to be a part of the process, because we do have to find solutions. We have to do things differently to house people and to move around the city. So this is a really important process that we're going through, and we want to be successful, and we want to do a great job for our community.
Yeah, I'm so personally passionate about zoning, which is a really wonky, plannery thing to be interested in and passionate about. But it is so incredibly important because the zoning code in tandem with the comprehensive development plan together determine how we grow as a city and how we fulfill our vision for who we are as a city. And it answers the question, do we want to be an inclusive city where everybody who chooses to live here can do so? Or are we going to be a city where we welcome newcomers, but at the expense of those that are already here, and people end up getting pushed out? And the way that zoning can help to ensure that we're an inclusive city is by allowing for people that are here to stay while creating additional housing units for people that are moving in. And that is, like you said, accommodating density within specific areas where the infrastructure is already in place to do that. And it's zoning, and it's a great opportunity. It's a great moment in time in Atlanta to be able to shape what that plan looks like, which is going to be in place for the next 40 years. You know, between now and 2050, the region is expected to grow by almost 2 million people. So where are we going to accommodate all of those new people? A lot of them are going to be coming to the city specifically, but to the broader region. And so this is an issue that everybody across the metro area is going to have to grapple with. And if we don't intentionally plan for that growth, then it will be haphazard and out of control, and it won't be done in a way that allows for us to preserve our quality of life.
That's right. So please make sure you attend one of those workshops. It's all around the city they're traveling to, especially being involved in real estate, so you can talk to your clients and talk to your neighbors about what's going on. And when you go, bring somebody with you. So the Atlanta Land Trust mission is to deliver and steward permanently affordable housing. Can you explain what this means and why it's important for Atlanta?
Sure. So the Atlanta Land Trust is a distinct type of nonprofit organization called a community land trust. And what differentiates us from other affordable housing developers is that the homes that we create are permanently affordable. So we do that again through the community land trust model, which simply removes land from the speculative real estate market and puts it into community control. This is a new model to us here in Atlanta, but it's one that's been around for quite a long time, really across the globe, but in the United States for over 50 years. The first community land trust we had here in the U.S. was in Southwest Georgia, actually, and it was created as part of the Civil Rights Movement to give Black farmers control of their land when they were being threatened with eviction by white property owners. So since then, the movement has really spread throughout the United States, and there are over 300 community land trust programs in operation across the country. So this has been well tested in many other cities, many other communities across the country. We benefit from the best practices that have been learned in other places and are working to implement and scale the model now in Atlanta. So how this works from a homeownership perspective is we use a dual ownership structure to create homes that are permanently affordable. So a homeowner comes to the Atlanta Land Trust, or home buyer comes to the Atlanta Land Trust, and they purchase just the house itself or the improvement, while we retain ownership of the underlying land. We then enter into a long-term ground lease with that homeowner that gives them the right to be on our land. And then that ground lease will contain resale restrictions. So when they're ready to sell, what we ask of our homeowners is they sell it to another income-qualified family for an affordable price, paying forward the benefit of an affordable home they received to the next family. And that process then just repeats itself over and over again, so the homes that we're creating are perpetually affordable and can benefit generations of families over time.
And so does the buyer get a homeowner once they acquire the property, and let's say they were there for 30 years, 40 years, or 20, whatever that is, and they decide to move for family, maybe family status changes, right? They need a little more elbow room. What percentage, is there a percentage of the equity that they get? Do they retain some of it, or how does that work? I just want to make sure everyone understands.
That's really the most important question, right? Because that's why most people pursue home ownership, is to create an asset, create wealth that they can pass down to their heirs. So it is important that we are able to do that while also balancing the affordability of the home for the next buyer. So we use what's called a resale formula, and that is in our ground lease. So the ground lease is the contract between the Atlanta Land Trust and the homeowner. And again, that's what gives them the right to be on our land, but it also establishes all of the rules around how the house is used and how the sale process is going to work. So the resale formula is the formula that we use to determine how much a homeowner can sell their home for when they're ready to sell. We use two different formulas, but the primary formula we use is called an appraisal-based formula, and that allows for the homeowner to share in up to 25% of the appreciation of the home during the time that they live there. So they're able to share in the market activity within their community while also ensuring that the home is going to be affordable for the next buyer that they sell it to.
That's great. And what I love about that model is because we have different kind of starter home or home ownership, affordable home ownership models available across Atlanta that are being developed. And what I want our listeners to understand is every model, there's models that are right for certain buyers. And so I want to make sure that you understand this model, and you also inform your buyers about it, that this may be the right option for them and why it works and why it can work for them, because it still provides a share in equity, but also that stability of home ownership and not fluctuating and not worrying about, your landlord, the apartment selling in 5 years when it trades hands, or a landowner, a private landowner, landlord that maybe wants to sell to take advantage of the market. And you now have to uproot your family and move. This gives you some stability, becoming a homeowner, and then also passing this on to a future resident when you do sell, if you sell. Some may stay here forever, right? Because these homes I've seen some of the products that you've had. Some of them are 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes in town neighborhoods where typically townhomes are going for almost double what you guys are, what you guys are selling them for. So the opportunity is incredible. And so I want to make sure that you are giving your clients that look and the information about where these opportunities are located. So
yeah, and I would just add, I totally agree with you. There are a spectrum of affordable housing programs that exist that serve people at various income levels at different times in their life. And so it's really important that people have options to choose from.
That's right.
And the option that we have may not be a great fit for everybody, or it may be a great fit for somebody at a specific time of their life, but not forever. So with the Atlanta Land Trust, there's no specific amount of time you're required to stay in your home. You can stay there, like you said, you can stay there your whole life and pass it down to your heirs, or you can stay there for just a couple of years so that you can build some savings in order to purchase a larger home or a market rate home. What we see on average, looking at national data, is community land trust homeowners stay in their homes on average 6 years.
Wow.
And then 63% will move on to buy a market rate home once they sell their community land trust home. So it really is creating a pathway to traditional home ownership for those that aspire to it. So we always make sure when we're talking to community members that they understand that if your goal is traditional home ownership, we can help get you there.
Exactly.
This doesn't have to be the end of the road for you owning an Atlanta Land Trust home. It can just be one step along the way.
It's a starter home,
right?
And get you started on your home ownership journey.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Almost all of our home buyers are first-time homeowners, and so you're absolutely right. It is them just getting started and starting to build some wealth so that they can grow that over time.
I love that. How does the Atlanta Land Trust work to support inclusive and equitable communities near the Atlanta Beltline and other targeted areas?
Sure. So we operate across the city of Atlanta, but we're really focused in on the Beltline corridor. And the reason for that is because our founders, we were founded by the Annie Casey Foundation, the Atlanta Beltline Partnership, and a group of community-based organizations called AHAND. They recognized that as the Beltline was going to be constructed across the city, that it would attract a lot of jobs and development investment, and as a result would put pressure on those single-family communities that are close to the project. So they wanted to ensure that they could create and preserve affordable housing options in and around the project. And one reason I think that's really important is because the Atlanta Beltline is a public infrastructure project, which means we as citizens of Atlanta are the ones that are funding its construction. We are investing in that project through our tax dollars, through property tax dollars, through sales tax dollars. So it's only fair that everybody who is investing in that project has the opportunity to benefit from it.
Agreed.
Otherwise, people are literally investing in their own displacement.
Yep.
So it's critically important that as we invest in these major public infrastructure projects, whether it's the Beltline or the West Side Park or public infrastructure, transit, that we are really intentional about ensuring that affordable housing options are preserved in those communities so Atlantans of all incomes can remain in place and benefit from those projects. So that's one way that we're really working to make sure that we are creating inclusive communities.
Yep.
And another way is we really are wanting to make sure that people have access to opportunity so that we are creating affordable housing options in communities of opportunity. And that can mean a community where you have access to public transportation to take you to a job center. It could mean a community where you have access to a good school, to healthy food options. So that's a big focus for us as well. And most of the communities we're working in are historically Black communities. So we're really trying to ensure that Black families can continue to afford to live and thrive in Atlanta as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so critical to thriving communities, right? We want our city to thrive for the future. We've got to ensure that we've got inclusive communities.
Absolutely.
And
that's the secret sauce of Atlanta, right? Like that's what makes us special.
Sauce. That's right.
That we're a diverse community and we're a place where anybody can come and live and be successful. And if we lose that, we lose our identity as a city.
Absolutely. And I remember back when, the Beltline opened up in the East Side, and it was crazy.
Bunkers.
And the real estate, all the real estate around there skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Because it was like, if you lived in town, you kind of knew what was going to happen. But if you lived outside of the city, I remember being referenced to as an overglorified sidewalk on like news outlets and so forth.
New York Times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is the most expensive overglorified sidewalk I've ever seen built. Like they just thought it was a waste of taxpayers' money.
Right.
And then as soon as it opened, it was on fire. The East Side, all those, the real estate, the businesses, right? There's businesses that only have a front door on the Beltline.
Right.
And there's businesses that have two front doors, one on the street, one on the Belt. It's just incredible, right? And so the fact that the Beltline and the NEKC Foundation and the other founders took the initiative to say, hey, you know what? As we continue to expand this loop around the city, we've got to make sure that it remains equitable.
Right, because we saw what happened on the East Side, right?
Yes.
So we learned our lesson. Let's do better next time and make sure that we are more intentional about creating and preserving affordable housing opportunities because we know the impact the project's going to have.
That's right. And for those of y'all who are listening, especially our licensed agents that are working with buyers, there are some really cool developments that they have coming that are already being built along Beltline corridors and adjacent Beltline neighborhoods that you really should take your clients to go see. They're really cool, great locations. So if you haven't, she's going to tell us at the end where to find that info, but definitely take a look at that because that's the key as to why it's important, right? Because now your client can get in a Beltline neighborhood or Beltline adjacent neighborhood and still participate in all of the lifestyle and a portion of the appreciation and all of that while they live and get into their long-term home ownership goals here in Atlanta. So can you share some of the key successes and milestones the Atlanta Land Trust has achieved under your leadership?
Sure. So I joined the Land Trust in 2018. And when I started at the Land Trust, we had not had any full-time staff for 5 years.
Wow.
So when they hired me, I was charged with relaunching the organization. We had three homes in trust at that point in time, 3 condos in trust. So over the past almost 6 years now, I've worked to establish the organizational infrastructure that will allow for us to scale and have our desired impact. And at this point, our goal is to have 300 units in trust by 2025. And that is within sight for us right now. But certainly one of my proudest accomplishments during my tenure at the Land Trust is the team that I've worked to build. We now have 5 staff members at the Land Trust,
awesome.
And we have 2 interns. Nice. And the team is just amazing. Everybody has some very special skill sets. Everybody's work is really complementary. Everybody gets along well and supports each other because we are still a small nonprofit organization. And so you inevitably have to do stuff that's outside your job description, and everybody's passionate about the mission and doing the work. And so it's really such a joy to be on this team with my colleagues. So that's the first thing.
That's huge.
And you know a lot of them.
That is huge.
Yeah.
0 to 5.
Yes.
3 to 300. I mean, that is pretty impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm really proud about is that we were able to successfully launch a capital campaign. It was our inaugural capital campaign in order to fund the construction of 120 townhome units across 3 projects in the city. And we had never done a capital campaign before. We did a feasibility study, which is kind of the first step in your capital campaign. And the feasibility study said you can raise $6.5 to $7 million. And we ended up closing our campaign at $14 million.
Amazing.
So we almost doubled what our goal
Yes.
was. And a lot of that was because, costs went up and we had gaps that we had to fill, growing gaps. It was very dynamic during the pandemic. But we closed that out in 2023. And so what that has allowed for us to do is move forward with those 3 townhome communities, which you alluded to before, 2 in the Oakland City neighborhood and 1 in Eastlake. And so that has really dramatically scaled the work that we're doing and the impact that we're able to have. And we have started moving folks into the first of those 3, which is called the Avenue at Oakland City. It's on Tucker Avenue. Our first phase was 15 homes. So those are complete now. And I think we've probably moved in about 8 folks into that community.
Awesome.
So that's another huge
Yes.
accomplishment, is just
Huge.
having people move into something that we built on our own, that we visioned in partnership with the community. I mean, we went to, I don't know if it was hundreds, but it was close to hundreds of community meetings in the Oakland City neighborhood, just to make sure that we understood their vision for the community and how we could support that through this project. And so to have that project be our first that's complete and have people moving in feels really special.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have 2 questions based on your response to. One, where can our members in the community go to find your development projects, where they're located? How can they sign up for more information?
Sure. So our website is atlantalandtrust.org. And we have on there all of our events, which we'll talk about. And then we also have information for developers and home builders, as well as real estate agents and prospective home buyers. So it's pretty easy to find. If you go to the home buyer section, you can see all of our available listings, which we keep up to date on the website. And so it includes those townhome communities, as well as some single family homes that we're working on.
Awesome. I imagine you're going to start getting a lot more clicks on that. Our members going to be like, I need to find out where these homes are. So you mentioned a little bit about community engagement and collaboration.
Yeah.
How does the Atlanta Land Trust engage with the local community and ensure their needs and voices are heard?
So that's a really important part of our work at the Land Trust, that everything we do be in partnership with and in service to the community. Nice. The first thing is that we have a tripartite board of directors, which is different from, again, other nonprofit organizations in that it ensures that there's community representation on our board. So there are 3 distinct groups represented on our board: nonprofit organizations, community members, and then public and private stakeholders, which includes City of Atlanta representatives, developers, home builders. But within that community category, we also include homeowners. So as we move more and more folks into houses, it's important that their perspective be represented at the table when we're making decisions about the work that we're doing at the Land Trust. So we have 2 homeowners on the board right now, and then another 4 community representatives. But almost all of our board members live either in the communities where we are working or the City of Atlanta. So really, they're all stakeholders in the work that we're doing. So that's really important, that we have those community folks that are part of our governance and policy making structure. But with all of our projects, we engage the community before we start construction, particularly on larger projects, just to make sure that the project that we're building, again, meets the needs of the community, it's responsive to them, it supports them. And if it's not, that we incorporate their feedback to ensure that it does better meet their needs. An example of that is in the Oakland City neighborhood, we worked with the Oakland City Community Organization. We've been working with them for a long time because we have 2 townhome projects in that neighborhood. For the first project we worked with them on, they really determined kind of the site plan and the development program. For the second project, we had come to them with kind of a preliminary concept of what we wanted to do and got a couple of important points of feedback. One was that we needed to provide a deeper level of affordability, which meant we needed to serve people below 60% of the area median income, which is hard to do on a home ownership project.
It really is.
But that was really important to them because what that means is that more people that are already in the neighborhood would be able to afford to buy the project. The other piece of feedback we got was around garages. We got a lot of pushback because this project's right across the street from the Beltline that we eliminate garages because we really wanted to de-emphasize parking. Okay. So we did some on-street parking and some surface parking, but got rid of the garages. So we really try and listen to what the community says about what they want to see on our projects. And it's really an iterative process. So we try and go before we need anything so that they know who we are.
Yep.
And then start talking about project concepts before we need a rezoning or funding or a specific entitlement.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the depth that you all go to, I mean, it's really holistic from not only the community engagement, but also seats on your board. So you have the ongoing feedback, ongoing just cross collaboration. I think that's great. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And Grove Park is a neighborhood where we are starting to do more work now. And so we've really been thinking hard and been in communication with that neighborhood's leadership about how we can engage in a way that is approachable and authentic, and really trying to meet people where they are. Because if you go to a neighborhood meeting, you get maybe 5 minutes to talk.
Yeah.
So it needs to be something outside of that. And so we've identified a few community events that we'll be going to. So we'd like to do that too, because then you can have more in-depth conversations with people and get to know them on a more of a personal level.
That's great. What are the biggest challenges you face in delivering and maintaining permanently affordable housing in Atlanta?
Well, a big challenge right now is interest rates.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge I think that our home buyers are facing because, it's so tight to begin with, and interest rates make it just even more challenging because we set pricing at a given point in time and then interest rates fluctuate, right? Yep. And so it's hard to be able to accommodate those changes in a dynamic way in order to ensure affordability. So interest rates are always an issue. Funding is an issue as well, just because we have to raise a significant amount of money in order to achieve affordable sales prices for our homes. We're really fortunate to get a lot of land donated to us or sold to us at a discount from public partners like the City of Atlanta, the Metro Atlanta Land Bank, Invest Atlanta. But even with that, even if we get a piece of land for free, we still need to raise money in order to subsidize the construction costs and sell the homes at affordable prices. And so it's just a constant ongoing effort. And at this moment in time, I would say there are more resources available to us than there ever have been before. But it does take a lot of time and energy to find those, to apply for those, to figure out what projects they're going to be the best fit for, to fill all of those gaps. It takes a long time. And so that's always a challenge.
Yeah. And you mentioned about, and I guess maybe this is to the next question, but how do you and your team address these challenges, and what innovative solutions have you implemented? But coming off the tail of what you just responded and said about how now, yes, there's so many resources now available, right? That's also indicative of what is happening in the city of Atlanta, and having such strong, leadership focusing on affordability and affordable housing development, and ensuring that there is housing inventory that's attainable for our residents that have multiple different income levels on the spectrum. So. Tell me about how you and your team have addressed some of those challenges and how you're able to get these innovative, solutions and new resources.
The change that I have seen in Atlanta around the support for affordable housing over the past 6 years has been really dramatic. When I first started the Atlanta Land Trust, that was when an organization called House ATL, which I know you're very involved in, but that's when that organization first started meeting. And it was just kind of a loose collection of affordable housing developers, advocates, public sector, private sector, just trying to get our arms around this opportunity to help Mayor Bottoms achieve her goal of $1 billion for affordable housing. And that organization has really shepherded a lot of the policy changes, the new funding resources, the partnerships that have come to fruition over the past couple of years that have allowed for affordable housing to at be slightly easier to develop in the city. And like you said, we see Mayor Dickens has great support of it. And so it's new funding sources, but on the policy side, it's also the city prioritizing affordable housing, Invest Atlanta prioritizing affordable housing, not just affordable housing though, but permanently affordable housing, because there is a recognition that we need to approach the problem differently than we have historically, because we have a huge deficit of units, and every single year we're losing about 1,500 additional units. So if we don't change the way that we're developing affordable housing, we're not actually going to ever dig our way out of this hole. And so there's a recognition that we need a more sustainable solution, and the community land trust model is that, because everything we're building is going to be affordable forever.
That's right. And multiple solutions are the key.
Right.
That's the key. Because everyone's at different places in their lives. And
absolutely.
It's such an important role with the work the Land Trust is doing. What role does policy play in the work for the Atlanta Land Trust, and how do you advocate for policies that support your mission?
So on the policy side, the city of Atlanta has, again, been really supportive. Some important things they've done are establishing inclusionary zoning. So these are zoning overlays where in specific parts of the city of Atlanta, if you're building residential, you have to set aside a portion of those units for affordable housing. There's one around the Beltline now, and there's one around the West Side Park. So I think that is a really helpful policy approach to require the private sector in the market to participate in solving the problem. It also has been really helpful for organizations like Invest Atlanta, who are allocating funding to support development, that they have a policy objective to prioritize permanent affordability. So if you are seeking funding from them and you're building housing, you're going to be asked to set aside a portion for affordable housing. But if you set it aside as permanently affordable housing, you will get a higher amount of money than you would otherwise. So those things are really important. Zoning is also incredibly important from a policy perspective. We talked about the process the city's going through and why that's so important. We would like to be able to have the flexibility to do more missing middle housing, which is slightly higher density housing within a single family neighborhood. So that can look like a duplex or a triplex. It could be accessory dwelling units, very small apartment buildings. So nothing that changes the fabric of a neighborhood or a community, but allows for some gentle density that can accommodate more people within that community. And for us, it's great because that allows for us to leverage the limited land that we have and create more units to benefit more families on that limited amount of land. So zoning that allows for multiple units within single-family neighborhoods is really helpful.
Yeah, in some parts of town, you can find that, but in so many, it does not exist.
Correct.
And so that's definitely a big gap in our zoning that we'd like to see changed for sure. I know I put that on my workshop one when they were around. A lot of dots for that, the colored dots for that.
Yep.
That's an area that you could, like you said, can still keep the same facade curb appeal of the neighborhood, but allows for more density. Yep. So we need more of that for sure. You mentioned a little bit about inclusionary zoning, and I know as realtors, we're always like, we don't need policy on land. And I remember when we were going through the Beltline inclusionary zoning piece, and I remember when we sat down with Mayor Bottoms when she was running, and we were discussing housing policy. And anytime we sit down and talk to people running for office, or even when they're in office, and talking about legislative issues in zoning, and we definitely understood that if public-private partnerships for sure, right? And the private developers that were, directly benefiting from right on the side of public infrastructure.
Right.
We understood, and we had a lot of conversations in depth around that, and so we've got to make sure that we all want more density, more development, and also more options for everyone. So finding a happy medium, I felt like that was a good job of the city and the private sector coming up with a really nice, good medium to kind of just, we can figure out how to work with everyone and how to make this an equitable city for everyone. So we can't just continue to widen the wealth gap. We've got to create opportunities for other groups and disadvantaged groups to participate. So I thought that was a really good way that turned out.
Yeah, agreed.
So as far as your future goals and vision for the Atlanta Land Trust, what are your short-term and long-term goals for the Atlanta Land Trust?
So I shared what is now, I guess, a short-term goal, given that 2025 is next year. Yeah. We went through a strategic planning process in late 2019, early 2020, that was really designed to provide a roadmap for the next 5 years of the organization and how we were going to begin to scale our operation. And within that strategic plan, we identified the goal to have 300 units within trust by 2025. So that is what we are laser focused on. We have about 50, it's every day it grows because we have a lot of closings. We have awesome. Almost 60 homes in trust right now. And then another 140 that are in development, most of which are under construction. And then about 130 that are future opportunities where we haven't begun work in earnest, but maybe we have control of the land or we have a partnership in place. And so 300 is within sight. It's within reach. It might not be by the end of 2025, but it'll be pretty close.
Right.
So I feel
shovels in the dirt.
Great about our progress towards that goal, because when we had initially said it, when they hired me at the Atlanta Land Trust in 2018, they initially wanted 1,000 units in trust within 3 years.
Wow.
I was like, so maybe that's my long-term goal.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. 1,000 units in trust. So, I mean, that is a longer-term goal. But every year we build our capacity as an organization. We increase our financial capacity. We establish new funder relationships, new development partnerships. And so I think every year we will be gaining momentum and begin to increase the number of homes that we're able to put homeowners in. So maybe 1,000 units, within the next 10 years would be achievable, but that's certainly it. That's certainly a big part of the work that we're doing. But moreover, really wanting to make sure that this model is understood and accepted by the real estate community and by people that live in these neighborhoods. We just want to make sure people understand how this works and that it's an option that's available to them, and for them to see us as a trusted partner. So we're somebody who, again, wants to work with them to make sure that their community remains inclusive and diverse and a place where people of all income levels can choose to live. So for us to be that organization, to be identified as that organization, is also an important goal.
Yeah, that's great. And, 1,000 units definitely seems attainable with the current climate and what's already been done to secure land. Yeah. So you'll have, like you said, the land partnerships and the funding. I think that all seems doable to me. So I'm excited about the future of the Land Trust. You guys have been moving at, honestly, great speed. Could go from 3 to 300, right? And then even setting yourselves apart in terms of the metro, where you're now being looked to from other municipalities is like, how are you doing that? How do we get a land trust? How can we do what you're doing? So how are you able to showcase, and how can you be an example for those other cities that are looking to implement similar land trust models to address affordable housing?
So that's really exciting, right? Because I talked about that there are lots of community land trusts across the country, but there haven't historically been a lot in Georgia, even though the movement has its beginnings here in this state, or in Metro Atlanta. So the idea that all of these communities in the metro area are evaluating community land trusts or even establishing them, like the city of Decatur now has their own community land trust, is really exciting. And I do think that we have a role to play. There are other cities and regions and states where they have coalitions or collectives of community land trusts that support each other. So I would love to get to a point where we have a statewide community land trust organization or a southeastern regional community land trust organization, because it's really important that we are creating a network of organizations that can be supportive, like sharing information on mortgage lenders, on funders, on new programs. We're in communication with other community land trusts all the time, and it's been incredibly helpful to the work that we're doing here in Atlanta. So I would love to see more of that in Atlanta and even across the state.
Agreed. How can our listeners get involved with or support the Atlanta Land Trust in its mission?
So I appreciate the question. Real estate agents are on the front line. So they are our best ambassadors to be able to share information about this program. So there are a couple of different ways that your listeners could learn more about the work that we're doing and potentially get more deeply involved. The first thing is we do have a continuing education class for real estate agents. It does provide CE credit.
Yay.
We have a staff person, Karen Babineau, who is a broker. And so she recognized the value in having CE credits early on and has worked really hard to establish this class and build the curriculum. And that's a virtual class. Our next one is on August 29th. So that's a great way to kind of go deeper into how the program works. But if you want more of a high-level overview or you have a more immediate desire to learn more, we have a monthly community information session. Those are also virtual. Those are designed really as the first step in the home buying process with the Atlanta Land Trust, but it's open to community members and certainly real estate agents. And so that one's coming up on June 8th is our next one. And that's the second Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. So if you miss that one, there'll be one the next month. And again, it's a good way to get a high-level overview of how the program works, of what our process is, what our qualification requirements are, some of the inventory we have available. So that's a great resource. As well, our website is a good resource. It has a 2-minute video on the homepage that talks about the community land trust model that any of your listeners could share with their clients to help them get a real basic understanding of how it works. We have listings on our website.
And you have tours.
And we do have tours. We also have open houses. We're participating in Invest Atlanta's upcoming event on June 8th, and we will have our Avenue at Oakland City project on the tour. It's a self-guided tour. So we'll be out there if anybody's signed up to participate in that. So those are great ways to get involved. We also have a group called Friends of the Atlanta Land Trust, which is kind of a collective giving way for agents to get more deeply involved to support our work financially. We also will highlight agents, and those agents will have an opportunity to potentially work with us because we always recommend that our homebuyers have representation.
Yay,
so we have a list.
You.
Yes. we recognize the value of a real estate agent, particularly for a first-time homebuyer and helping them to navigate that process. So we have a list of approved agents that we publish on our website for anybody that has attended our CE class. But if you are a friend of the Atlanta Land Trust, you're also going to get the first opportunity to bid on work with us. So that would be serving as a listing agent on any of our projects. We use listing agents on our larger scale projects.
Awesome. All right. So see all the multiple ways you get to connect with the Atlanta Land Trust. You have shared so much information with us today. I am really excited about how much our listeners got to understand this model and why it's good for maybe even you, but definitely some of your clients.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share our work.
All right, a couple fun questions we like to close out with. Okay. So what is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. I'll give you one. It's hard for me to choose. I am a reader. I love reading. But being a city planner, I'm going to have to choose Jane Jacobs.
Okay.
Who's like one of the OG city planners. And her book is The Death and Life of Great American Cities.
Okay, nice. I'll have to add that one as well to the queue. And what is your favorite Atlanta restaurant? One of your favorites. I know it's hard to choose. One of your favorite Atlanta restaurants.
Okay. I'll give you two. I live in Inman Park, and so we are really spoiled to live in Inman Park because we have a lot of restaurants
of good ones
that we can walk to from our house. So Rathbun Steak is a favorite in my neighborhood, and Bocalupo is another favorite in my neighborhood.
Two amazing restaurants. Awesome. And if our listeners want to find you and follow you and catch up with you, where can they find you?
So I am on X. We are not posting as much on X anymore because it seems like things have kind of gotten out of hand over there. But ATL Land Trust is my handle there. We're more active on Instagram now, and that's atlanta.land.trust.
Awesome.
So that's
I got that. Instagram. Yep. Awesome. Thank you again for being here today. Thank you for sharing this information with our members and our community. And hopefully we'll start to get more people interested in this model. And you get to these 1,000 units faster because the wait list is going to be so long.
Yes, let's do it.
Thanks again. And again, if you have not yet subscribed to the show, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed what you heard today and you learned a lot today, which I'm sure you did, please go ahead and give us 5 stars. Share this episode with a fellow agent, neighbor, friend. Hey, have you heard about this land trust model? Is this something that could work for you? That allows us to expand our reach and, of course, engage the community and let them know what's going on and all this incredible work that the Atlanta Land Trust and Amanda, leading the way, is doing here to create equitable and inclusive housing opportunities for all of us in the city of Atlanta. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Atlanta Realtors Rundown. Please subscribe, and for more information on how to get engaged, check us out at atlantarealtors.com. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.